Officer Callahan thought it'd be an easy win, a chatty teen with no law degree. What he didn't expect was her building a case so airtight it unraveled his career in a packed courtroom. The courtroom wasn't quiet. You could hear the hum of an old ceiling fan, the faint scratch of the clerk's pen, the shuffle of cheap plastic chairs. But everything felt still when Kayla Thompson walked in. She wasn't dressed to impress, just a black blazer, navy slacks, and flats, the kind of outfit you'd wear to a school debate or a church event. She wore it like armor. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, glasses perched low on her nose. She looked calm, controlled, like someone who'd already read the book's final chapter while everyone else was still flipping pages. At the defense table, she sat slowly. No lawyer beside her, just her, 16, facing charges of obstructing justice alone. That's when Officer Sean Callahan laughed. It wasn't loud, but loud enough for the bailiff to glance his way, smirking slightly, like he was watching a bad sitcom with a predictable ending. Judge Leonard Hayes looked down. "Ms. Thompson, you're representing yourself today?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said, voice steady, clear, no trace of nerves. Callahan leaned back at the prosecution table, arms crossed. "This'll be quick," he muttered. Kayla didn't flinch. To the rest of the courtroom it looked simple. A girl from the west side of Atlanta trying to play smart. Another routine arrest, just another case number. But what they didn't know was that Kayla Thompson had spent the last 4 weeks preparing like her future depended on it. Because it did. She scanned the room, eyes lingering on her mother in the back row. Her mom wasn't smiling. She barely breathed. Kayla gave a slight nod, not for comfort, but for confirmation. She had this. The bailiff called the case. State of Georgia versus Kayla Elise Thompson, case number 23 Victorine 72C. 1 count of obstructing justice. 1 count of interfering with police procedure. Kayla stood ready. "Your Honor." Judge Hayes eyed his file. "Miss Thompson, I've read the charges. You've waived your right to counsel. I must warn you, this isn't traffic court. You'll be held to the same standards as a licensed attorney." "I understand, Your Honor." Callahan shook his head like he couldn't believe it was real. A girl like her quoting legal codes, arguing her own defense. It was laughable to him, but what he didn't know was that Kayla hadn't wasted time after her arrest. She didn't go to parties, skip school, or vent online about life's unfairness. She read, studied, watched trial recordings on public record sites, called legal aid hotlines under a fake name just to hear real lawyers break down cases. Most crucially, she rewatched the footage from her cracked phone over and over. When she hit record that day outside Lincoln High, she wasn't trying to go viral. She was trying to protect someone. Her classmate, Marcus Evans, had been shoved face first into a chain-link fence during a dispute over a stolen backpack. Callahan showed up yelling, angry. When Kayla stepped in, not touching anyone, just asking what he was doing, she got handcuffs, shoved into a patrol car, and charged with obstructing an officer. The footage didn't lie, but back then no one cared. Now it was evidence. But that would come later. For now, Kayla adjusted her glasses, pulled a neat stack of documents from her folder, and set them before her. Callahan looked bored. She looked ready. Arrogance crumbles under the weight of truth. And that truth was about to make the room sit up and listen. It happened on a Tuesday, A muggy Georgia afternoon that made metal fences feel like griddles. School had just let out. Kayla was waiting at the corner of West Peachtree Street and 10th Avenue, half listening to music, half scrolling a group project chat. That's when she heard raised voices, a crowd gathering. She pocketed her phone and followed the noise. Marcus Evans, a junior known for being loud but harmless, was arguing with a school security guard about a backpack someone claimed he stole. It wasn't Marcus yelling. It was the adult in uniform. Then Officer Callahan arrived. He wasn't school security. He was an Atlanta PD cop assigned to this part of town after a spike in petty crime. Everyone knew him. Broad shoulders, sunglasses, always clipped to his belt, like he was waiting for an excuse. Kayla had seen him before, talking to kids not like people, but like problems. This time was no different. Callahan stormed in, asked no questions, just grabbed Marcus's arm. The kid jerked back instinctively. No punches, no threats, just fear. That was enough for Callahan to slam him into the fence. Kayla froze for half a second, then pulled out her phone. "You can't do that," she said. "He didn't do anything." Callahan glared at her like she was gum on his shoe. "I'm recording this," Kayla said, voice steady, but loud enough for other students to hear. "You didn't even ask what happened." "You want to interfere?" Callahan snapped, letting go of Marcus and stepping toward her. "You want to be part of this?" Kayla didn't back down. "You can't use excessive force without cause. I know my rights." "You know your rights?" he mocked. "How about you learn consequences?" And just like that, she was shoved into a patrol car, hands cuffed behind her, phone yanked away. "Obstructing," he said, loud enough for his body cam. "She interfered with police duties." Students gasped. A few pulled out their phones. By the time Kayla's mom reached the station, the damage was done. Fingerprints taken, booked, and told she'd face a judge. The days that followed weren't loud. They were heavy. No lawyer took the case for free. Public defenders were swamped. Her mom worked double shifts at a VA hospital. No money to fight it. So Kayla went to work herself. She remembered what her aunt used to say. "If you want to be heard, learn their language first." That night, she watched 4 hours of courtroom videos on YouTube. The next night, 6. She started jotting down words she didn't understand, looking them up. She printed the police report, read it line by line, highlighting every lie. She reached out to her cousin's girlfriend, a paralegal in Savannah. They didn't talk much, but when she heard the story, she sent Kayla a list of resources, legal codes, PDFs, public case records, video tutorials. It was like tossing a match into gasoline. Kayla didn't just study the law, she memorized it. She learned what judges look for when someone represents themselves. Found cases where young people fought charges and won. She even rehearsed opening statements in the mirror, recording herself on a borrowed tablet to study her posture, her tone. School faded into the background. Teachers emailed. Some offered support. Others didn't reply. But one, Mr. Langston, her civics teacher, noticed. "You're not giving up, are you?" he asked one afternoon when she stayed late. "No," she said, "just preparing." The thing is, people rarely notice until the spotlight hits. Then they're shocked you were ever invisible. Kayla didn't practice like someone hoping to win. She practiced like someone with no choice but to win. Every morning was the same. Wake before dawn, clear the kitchen table, open her folder. It was 3 inches thick now, stuffed with printed statutes, handwritten notes, neon sticky tabs, and transcripts of other trials she'd found online. She color-coded everything: yellow for key terms, blue for contradictions, red for Callahan's inconsistencies. She watched her arrest footage over 30 times, learning to dissect it frame by frame, noting the exact second Callahan grabbed Marcus, the moment she spoke, the time her hands were visible. She didn't cry. Her mom, Denise, wanted her to plead guilty. "We can't afford to play, baby," she whispered one night over reheated casserole. "They got the badge, the judge, the room. You don't win in those places." Kayla didn't answer right away. She chewed slowly, then pushed her plate aside. "I'm not trying to win, Mama. I'm trying to show them I'm not easy to scare." That silence hit Denise harder than any shout. Later that night, Kayla sat alone in her room. A borrowed laptop from Mr. Langston balanced on a pillow. The screen lit her face as the cursor blinked on a Word doc titled Opening Statement Draft 5. Each time she read it aloud, she caught something new. A word too soft, a line too emotional, a sentence that didn't sound like her. She didn't want to sound angry. Angry meant loud. Angry made people stop listening. No, she had to sound measured. Not because she wasn't angry, but because it scared them more when a girl like her stayed cool. One afternoon, she called the legal aid hotline again, this time asking for someone familiar with excessive force cases. The woman, Sandra, sounded tired but kind. "You filing a complaint or facing charges?" "Technically both," Kayla said. "You got a lawyer?" "I am my lawyer." A pause, then a soft chuckle. "Well, damn. Okay, what's your name?" Kayla hesitated, then gave it, her first time doing so. For the next half hour, they reviewed her report. Sandra told her which laws the prosecutor would likely lean on, warned her how judges typically view teen defendants without counsel. "Don't try to sound smart," Sandra said. "Aim to sound confident." Kayla wrote it on a sticky note and taped it to her folder. "Don't try to sound smart. Aim to sound confident." In her spare time, she practiced. In front of mirrors, her mom, even once before two neighborhood kids who usually just played video games on her stoop. "What if the judge cuts you off?" one asked. "Then I wait, and when he's done, I make sure he hears me anyway." Mr. Langston offered to be a character witness. Her cousin's girlfriend sent a PDF on structuring cross-examinations. Even the school janitor, Mr. Gibbs, who rarely spoke in full sentences, handed her a legal dictionary he'd kept from night classes in 2003. People rallied for her, not because she asked, but because she never begged for pity. They saw how serious she was. Callahan didn't. He still thought it'd be a short trial. A girl with no education, no degree. He figured he'd toss out some jargon and walk clean. He had no idea the teen across from him had prepped harder than most lawyers he'd faced in real courtrooms. But belief breaks when forced to face truth with a microphone, and Kayla was ready to speak. The courtroom felt different the second time. This wasn't the arraignment, it was the trial. Same judge, same fan, but now the back seats were fuller. A few teachers from Lincoln High showed up. Marcus sat near the front, his mom beside him. In a far corner, a reporter from the Atlanta's Daily News scribbled in a notebook, tipped off about a girl defending herself against a cop. Kayla stood as the judge entered. Judge Hayes adjusted his glasses. The bailiff glanced between Kayla and Callahan. Trial of State of Georgia for Kayla Thompson, Now in session, the prosecutor gave a dry opening, painting Kayla as a disrespectful troublemaker who escalated a tense situation. Callahan sat behind her, arms crossed, smirking occasionally, like it was just another shift. Then it was Kayla's turn. She walked to the center, notes in hand, but unread. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court," she began, looking straight at them. "I'm not a lawyer. I won't pretend to be. But I know what I saw, and more importantly, I know what I've lived. I'll let the facts speak for me." She returned to her table. Simple, clean, not passive. The judge nodded, mildly impressed. Then came the witnesses. The prosecutor called Callahan first. He took the stand with practiced ease. "Officer Callahan," she began, "can you describe what happened on the afternoon of September 15th? Callahan leaned in. "Yes, ma'am. I responded to Lincoln High after a report of an aggressive student. When I arrived, the situation was escalating. I restrained the student for safety, and this young woman started yelling, interfering with my ability to manage the incident." Kayla listened quietly, taking notes. When the prosecutor finished, the judge turned to her. "Your witness?" Kayla stood, heart steady. "Officer Callahan, how long have you been with the Atlanta Police Department?" 16 years. "And in those 16 years, how many times have you arrested a student for obstruction without physical contact?" Callahan raised an eyebrow. "A few. Depends on the threat level." "Did I pose a threat to you, sir?" "You were yelling." "I couldn't focus on the scene." "I was standing 12 feet away, correct?" He paused. "Roughly." "You didn't ask me to leave the area. You told me to back off. Is it standard protocol to grab a student by the neck from behind?" The prosecutor objected, saying the facts were speculative. The judge overruled. Kayla sighed, turned. "No more questions for now, Your Honor." She sat back calmly. The prosecutor called 2 more witnesses, a school security guard who vaguely recalled seeing Kayla recording, and a student who admitted they weren't really paying attention. Then it was Kayla's turn. She called Mr. Langston first. He described her as sharp-minded, never a troublemaker. "She's the one kids go to when they don't get an assignment," he said. "You don't expect a kid like that to act impulsively." Next was Marcus. He sat nervous but honest. "She was helping me," he said. "She didn't touch nobody. She just asked what was going on." "Did she threaten Officer Callahan?" "No." "Did she physically interfere?" "No. She had her phone. That's it." Kayla nodded, looked at the judge. "I'd like to enter a video file into evidence," she said. "It's from my phone, taken during the incident." The judge allowed it. The video played, sound crackly, but clear. You could hear Callahan shouting, see him shove Marcus, hear Kayla's voice, not yelling, not threatening, just asking, "What are you doing?" When Callahan grabbed her, the angle shifted, but you could hear everything. Gasps echoed softly in the courtroom. Kayla didn't watch the screen. She watched Callahan. For the first time, his confidence wavered. Truth, once exposed, doesn't retreat quietly. The silence after the video wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. Even the judge leaned back, fingers clasped, eyes fixed on Callahan. He cleared his throat. "Officer, care to respond to what we just saw?" Callahan shifted. "The video doesn't show the full interaction, Your Honor. You can't see the angle I was at. She was provoking an unstable situation. Kayla stood. Objection. That's subjective opinion, not a factual correction. The judge glanced at her, composed. Officer, stick to facts. Callahan tried again. I perceived her behavior as threatening. Kayla didn't look angry. She looked prepared. Officer Callahan, she said, stepping back for cross-examination, in your initial police report, you said, and I quote, the subject approached aggressively, yelling and failing to comply with verbal warnings, correct? Yes. But on the video, my voice is calm. I'm standing still. I never move closer to you. Videos can be misleading. I agree, so I submitted a timestamp analysis. She held up a printed screenshot. This frame shows my location. This frame, 5 seconds later, shows me in the same spot. No movement, no approaching, just standing. Care to challenge the timestamps? The courtroom was still. I'm not a video expert, Callahan said. That's okay. I sent this footage to a digital analyst at Georgia State University. I can call her as a rebuttal witness. The prosecutor's head snapped up. Your Honor, I'm within my rights, Kayla said. I disclosed the witness 2 days ago. Judge Hayes raised a hand. She did. It's in the file. Kayla sat slowly, calm, like someone who just moved a chess piece and knew the next 5 moves. The analyst confirmed the footage's integrity. No edits, no tampering, no movement from Kayla when she allegedly approached aggressively. Callahan's statement was now under fire, his credibility crumbling. Then Kayla made another move. Your Honor, she said, I asked the court to consider prior complaints filed against Officer Callahan, specifically 4 over the past 6 years. One from a parent at Carver Elementary, one from a gas station clerk, one from a man he detained during a traffic stop in March last year, and one from a community organizer in 2021. The judge raised an eyebrow. You're referencing public records of misconduct? Yes, sir. All accessible via Freedom of Information Act requests. All filed, but never pursued. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, these are unproven allegations. I'm not contesting guilt, Kayla said, facing the court. I'm asking the court to consider a pattern of overreaction, of targeting people who ask questions. I'm not his first stop, just the first who brought a folder. A ripple of quiet reactions ran through the courtroom. Not loud, but enough to feel. Callahan looked like a man realizing the room no longer belonged to him. The judge called a recess. When court resumed, his demeanor had shifted, more somber. I have reviewed the footage and considered the testimony provided, he began. I have concerns. Ms. Thompson, your presentation of evidence, your line of questioning, and the context you've raised create reasonable doubt. The prosecutor sat, lips tight, as Judge Hayes continued. The charge of obstructing justice is dismissed. Kayla didn't move, didn't smile, just stared ahead, as if her body hadn't caught up with the words. I'm also submitting a formal recommendation for a review of Officer Callahan's conduct, including past complaints and his actions in this case. That's when she exhaled, a quiet, even breath, the kind you let out when you finally set down something heavy. No applause, just that. Acquittals don't end things. They're just the part where people start asking how you carried the weight so long. As Kayla left the courtroom, the sunlight hit differently, not poetic, just brighter. sharper than she remembered. Her mom waited just outside the steps, arms crossed like she was holding back a storm. Kayla said nothing, nor did her mom. They just hugged. Not the kind that lasts forever. The kind that says, "We did it. Now let's breathe." Marcus approached with his mom. "You killed it in there," he said, voice half a whisper. "I didn't even know you could do all that." "Neither did I," Kayla replied. "Not till I paid attention." The Daily News reporter hovered nearby, notebook out, but Kayla shook her head gently. "Not today. Not yet." Over the next week, the story spread, not viral, not a sensational headline, but enough. The article called her "the teen who defended herself and made a court listen." There were ripples. School board members started asking questions about police presence on campuses. People called the house offering college resources, mock trial, scholarships, even mentorship from Black attorneys across the state. But Kayla didn't care about the attention. She cared that the video they said didn't matter was now part of an official complaint. Callahan was placed on administrative leave. Internal Affairs opened a review. Some still defended him. Always will. He was just doing his job. She should have stayed quiet. Why record it? But for every voice like that, 2 others said she stood her ground, knew the rules better than they did, changed something. At Lincoln High, students started asking questions in class differently. Teachers noticed some stepping up to help others quietly. The energy shifted. One afternoon, Mr. Langston called Kayla after school. "I pulled some strings," he said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. "Emory Law has a summer program, mentorship, legal exposure, mock trials. They take 20 students. I sent your name." Kayla opened the folder, scanned the application, didn't cry, didn't laugh, just nodded once. "What made you do it?" he asked. "I mean, really." She thought for a second. "It wasn't just about me. It was about the next kid like me not having to choose between silence and cuffs." He leaned back, smiling softly. "I think you've got more than a folder now." She laughed, the first time in weeks. That night, Kayla sat at the kitchen table again, not with notes, but with a blank sheet of paper. She wrote one sentence at the top. "They thought I came to defend myself, but I came to expose the truth." She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time, she could choose what came next on her terms. The message wasn't just about a girl who beat a bad charge. It was about what happens when you prepare in silence, speak with clarity, and refuse to be cornered. Kayla Thompson didn't ask for a fight, but when it came, she didn't flinch. She learned. She stood. She showed them genius doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it's just a teen with a folder of printouts, a phone camera, and the courage to say, "This isn't right," because justice doesn't always come top down. Sometimes it starts with someone no one saw coming. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear their voice matters. If you haven't subscribed, we've got more stories that don't just talk. They remind us what's worth fighting for.